Hello, everyone, and welcome to Get Better, a show about two longtime friends growing up, trying their best, and hopefully getting better. I'm Zach Johnson.
And I'm Sam Cherry.
Welcome back, everyone. It is your boys. It is Zach and Sam, your best friends, your quarantine bays, your mud gods, and we are here to just bring the energy. I feel like we're going to bring the energy this one.
Bringing a lot of energy. We're taking our weekly break from being sad. I just remembered that I didn't warm up my mic, so if that just blew out, my bad, guys. Also, hey, okay, I got a couple of updates and I got two recos. All right, so number one, keen-eared listeners will hear that there's always this thing where my mic and our mics pick up each other through the internet. I actually don't understand what they're hearing because it's not our headphones. But anyway, it's a real bummer to edit because you can always like sort of hear it and you can hear when it blah, 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 blah. The listeners know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I figured out how to fix it today.
Oh my gosh. This is the get better content that people come
really
for.
Is. It was a great feeling because I was like, oh, look, I fixed it. And the Butt Clown episode, last 31, has it still in there because I figured it out afterwards. I manually cut out a lot of it. But anyway, I figured out how to do it with the program. It's a noise floor or a noise gate where I just say, hey, anything under this level, just delete it because it was low, but not so low that you couldn't hear it. Two recommendations. The reason I needed 60 seconds, because I was finishing a video. Okay. There's these two guys that run an animation channel called BAM Animation, BAM Animation. They do videos sparingly. They're very good, but they're very practical for animators on like how to animate. It's interesting and they're good videos, but yeah, maybe not for you. Then in their most recent episode, they recommended a channel that I have really enjoyed. They also make videos very sparingly called Animation. ANY-MATION. Animation. Their videos, this guy, beautiful, wonderful. I was just watching his video called Where to Draw the Line, and it's amazing. It's all about like the history of animation, but then different aspects of animation. I don't know if he's making videos anymore because he made like 12 and now he's just posting like 6 like the audio from a podcast episode, so he might be done. But watch the videos he made because they're very good. That's where I'm at. You should go watch those videos. How you doing,
right
Zach?
now? Or I should watch them right now?
No, not right now.
Oh,
because
okay.
we're doing a podcast right now.
I'm doing great. Since our last episode, I moved into a new studio. The north office has gotten a little less north, slightly closer to where you are in the southern office.
But still 135 miles away.
But still 135 miles away. So yes, still in Louisville, but moved to a new place. And I'm going to do my very best to not reveal that location.
Please.
Yeah, and I got all moved in. I have all of my art on the walls, and I have the exact same setup of my desk with books piled on top of it and my microphone sitting on top of those books. The book that it is sitting on top of right now is the one that I'm reading, which is Restaurant at the End of the Universe, the second in the trilogy of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy books. And just one of the many things I'm filling the infinite void of time with.
Right. Because the bad news is, well, everyone knows the bad news. The good news is this show is
about the bad news. Well, this is the good news.
I know this show is an hour-long break for us and the listeners from all that bad news. And I have watched all the TV. It sounds like you're reading all the books. That's very good.
No, well, so we'll get into it at Reality Check at the end of it,
okay.
or whenever that happens. But also, in light of getting better, I think that you'll be very happy to know that I. Recently in the infinite void of time, I decided to fill it with taking the face or butt or whatever it is off of my computer and then putting in a solid state drive instead of a hard drive.
That's very
good. New RAM. So now I am max out on my RAM, and I have a solid state drive, and so my computer is running so fast.
I'll tell you what.
And it was really easy. So
it's super easy.
Exactly. And I didn't know it was easy, but since I have my 2011 MacBook, I didn't know that like the 2011 and 2012 were like definitively the last years that you could like goof around. It's like What are those cars that like a Honda Civic, I guess, that is like the last cars you can goof around with before they started putting computers in it, and they go like really fast on the streets and they're really noisy and obnoxious. It's one of those.
So I have a 2011 MacBook Pro, the laptop, and I also years ago put in a solid state drive and upgraded the RAM. I've been running an animation career off of this laptop for 7 or 8 years now, and the camera almost never works because of CamTwist, which we've covered in depth.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the audio jack doesn't work. Most of the mouse pad is broken, but this baby can animate because those two things just make it a new computer. It's basically a new like it can run After Effects, it can run Blender, it can run simulations, it can do everything that like my computer needs to do.
Yeah.
It could be better, but like those two upgrades, hey, if you do computer work and you don't have any money, do those. Because what I mean, for me, it costs like I want to say like $60 for RAM and maybe $200 for a hard drive, but like it's not expensive to buy those parts.
Yeah, exactly. Especially not as expensive as getting a whole new computer.
Right.
But yeah, like I'm bought into the computer modifying world now. I'm not going to do anything because it took me forever to do this one thing, and you've been asking me to do it forever. But the next
Ethernet cable.
No, but the internet at the new office is much better. So
Good.
So in my new office, I have in my much smaller room, which is fine. My other room was in a basement that oftentimes flooded. Shout out to old listeners. Shout out to our day ones.
We only have 31 episodes,
so
they're all day one.
Exactly. In one of those episodes, Zach has too much water. Those will remember that the room I was in flooded very comically, and now I am on the second floor of this house. But very comically now, and I think that, you know, if you're looking for titles for episodes, Zach doesn't have enough electricity. I have 2 plugs, like outlets in my room, and one of them is next to my desk, and one of them is in the back of my closet. Like I have to plug it into the closet and then string it out through an open door in the closet in order to get electricity. So effectively, I have 1 plug, and within that plug, I have like surge protectors plugged into more surge protectors, which is then plugged into a third surge protector. So
that'll be good for next week's episode. Zach has too much fire. That's going to be really good.
No, it protects it from surges. I will have no surges. There's going to be there's, if anything, by the time it gets to the third one, the electricity is almost all gone.
Sure. I get you.
Yeah.
That's good. I remember when we did Solve It, our former podcast, I was living in Antioch. And
cap that fool.
Different Antioch, I assume. I don't think it's about Antioch, Tennessee. But anyway, I lived in Antioch, and I was in a room that had an embarrassment of plugs. I promise you, every wall had 4 plugs. It was okay. So we lived in this neighborhood that was like definitely the nicest house I've ever lived in. We lived in this neighborhood that was
that recently had gone through the electricity wars of the 1980s, and they were not going to be caught. They're not going to be caught with their pants down.
Yeah. It was sort of a Mad Max, but like everything got good again, I guess. So it was this neighborhood that was like cut out of the woods. It was right on a lake, which was cool. But it was really, really far away. If you just look on a map of where Percy Priest is to Nashville, we were like halfway down Percy Priest. And so we're very, very far away. And so rent was super cheap. And we had this giant house, but I had 2 roommates who traveled all the time. So I basically lived by myself in this giant empty house, which was a bummer, which is why I started a podcast with my friend Zach, so I would feel less sad. And
now we need that more than ever.
Oh, God. So anyway, I was in the master bedroom because I was the only person that actually like lived in the house year round. And there was like 4 plugs on each wall. There was also maybe 4 plugs in the master bathroom, which was not as fancy as it sounds, but it was a bathroom in my bedroom. And then also there was a closet, which is where we recorded the podcast, that also had 4 more plugs in it. So there was like 85 plugs in my one room. And I was the only person who lived in the
Dude,
house.
can I borrow some of those plugs?
Yeah. I'll move them. I'll go to Antioch. I'll go to that house. Also, there was 3 of us, and we paid like $500 rent each. But
Okay, good.
it was wild. It was a huge house. It was absolutely wild. We lived there for like a year because we were 85 hours away from everybody else. We moved. I moved actually. And then we started this podcast. But yeah, man, it's tough. It's tough, and you got your surge protectors. But I hopefully, as long as you've got one to plug in your laptop and your microphone, I hope you can keep sticking around.
Yeah, I will be here, social distancing with you for the foreseeable future. So yeah, I just have to, when the fire episode comes out, then we'll really have we will have gotten to the second element of my arc, which is I'm gonna go water, fire, and then earth, and then air, and then air. I'm out. I'm gone.
You'll be the disaster avatar. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So have you read Hitchhikers before, or is this your first time through? I've never read any of it, so I don't know what I'm going to say.
I just recently read the first one, so Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and it is very good. Like, it is as good as, major trade publications say it is. It is very, very good.
Okay.
It's as good as advertised.
Got it. I'm still in Dune because I took a break to listen to 179 episodes about Rome. Did finish the Rome podcast, and now I'm back in Dune. But I'm glad you're enjoying Hitchhikers.
Yeah, no, it's super great. It's like Restaurant at the End of the Universe is the second one, and I just started it, but it's like it is one of the best ways to, I don't know, get into I think it's just writing that doesn't disrespect the audience, and I think we've talked about this quite a lot before. Just like a living, breathing universe around you that doesn't care if you understand what's going on. Like, they, in the book, like, the story matters, or the plot matters, and they reference the plot constantly because it's what's driving the story forward. But periodically you'll hear about these other alien species, and it's like, it treats it as if like you don't know anything about these cultures, and I'm just going to say a really quick joke about them, but like you don't get it because you don't live there. And it makes it really feel like it's a living universe. Like it doesn't feel like these things just exist to advance the plot forward. They exist because they exist, and they don't really care whether or not you're a part of it or not. And it's just really, really, it's like really, really fun. Like, every once in a while, like in the Hitchhiker's Guide, like it'll talk about like other planets, and it'll tell them just like stories, and like the stories is just like every once in a while they'll tell like something that happened in a planet's history and go like, but that has nothing to do with what's happening right now. I'm just letting you know.
Right. There's a great, there's a similar moment in Dune where they were talking about this character, and they had some word, and I always try to look up words while I'm reading it, instead of just passing over and be like, oh, I'll get it. Because sometimes I'll read a word for like a whole page and it's said a bunch, and then I'm like, yeah, I understand what that means, and then I look it up and I'm like, oh, I misunderstood this entire scene because I didn't know what that word meant. So I was looking up this word, and they were just offhandedly talking about it. That like this guy, he smelled of something, and I was like, oh, I don't know what that word is. So I looked it up, and the results were like, oh, that's a drug from Dune. It was like, oh, okay. Like, then reading it in context, you understood like, oh, that's what they meant. He's high on drugs. I get it. But they just like didn't have like the narrator look at the camera and just be like, this is a drug on. They just said it like a thing.
Yeah, and like I think it's like it's almost when you're reading something, or just when you're going through life, the human brain just like pieces together what's important and what's not important.
Right.
Like when you're crossing the road, you're looking for cars, you're not looking for birds. Like, and like, because your brain is able to compartmentalize like, this is important, this isn't important. And when you write books that way, it's like the author's almost like, you get it. And if you don't get it, like you got it. Like it's fine. You don't need to know everything. Like you don't need to know about the birds. Like you're fine if you just get this. But it makes everything seem a bit more lived in. And
and it really helps with like second readings or second viewings of like media like that, because you do get the plot the first time and you do understand what's happening. But then when you go back, there's such like a rich well of, oh, there's so much going on here and there's so much to know. And I think some people take that where they got to know all the answers and they're boring. And I think they understand media poorly. But, this is like a Star Wars problem.
Yeah,
where it's like, hey, I like that all the people in the band at the Cantina band like have names and have a backstory. I don't care. But you know what I mean? Like if you just focus on like, but I need to know all the names of all of the, I think they're funny names too, because George Lucas wasn't great at naming people, but or he was the best at it, I'm not sure. But you know, all that stuff, it's like it is interesting to go back to, and you can live in that world because you can go back to it more than once, because Game of Thrones is a great, you don't know Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is a great example because the lore of Game of Thrones, I mean, the thing about the series that is so compelling is book 1 and season 1 start in the middle of a story.
Yeah.
Like it's not as if there were all the war times and then like, no, stuff was happening that's important to the plot like 5 years ago or like a year ago. You know what I mean? Like it's not just
it doesn't start at the beginning.
Or there were the before times and then nothing and now is now. Like no, stuff's always like there's no point in the story that you could pick up that something semi-important didn't happen 2 years ago. Because it's a real world where things are happening every 2 years. Something's happening to push not even the narrative, but to just push events forward, because it's a real world where things are happening, you know? And that's interesting.
Yeah, no, but I think it's almost like making fun of that whole thing where like if you take a J.R.R. Tolkien where it's like everything means everything, like this sword was whatever, and it like it goes down this giant lineage, or this person is like it goes this whole thing. And like in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like galaxies and universes are like blipped into existence just for a joke and then blipped right out. And it's like it's almost like it's like but what does this mean? It's like it doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter the story. Why do you care? And it's kind of like even like making fun of that, like the Tolkien way of like, this doesn't matter, but I'm going to tell you everything about it to make you know it's a lived, breathed in universe. And not to say there's any, I mean, like Tolkien is a genius, and I want to take a definitive stance in this podcast and say I'm not bashing J.R.R. Tolkien, but it's almost like,
but you have notes.
Yeah. It's almost like it's it's kind of a bit. Sometimes it's a bit much, like with like writing everything is everything almost to like, and I think it was because of a passion project of his, but it's like, see, now you know the universe is breathed in and lived in because like everything means something. It's like you don't need all that. Like it could just be like I could get the sense that characters are doing things when the camera isn't around or when like the direction isn't on them, and I can get the sense that they're from somewhere, and I don't need to know where they're from, but I get the sense they're from somewhere, or like it's like such and such is from this village, and then they'll go like, ooh, and I'm like, okay, cool. All I know about that is that village is bad. Like, I don't know what they did there, but they're a bad village, you know, or something like that.
Are you saying that as a positive or negative? The second,
I'm saying that like that would be an example of just letting the audience kind of figure out what's going on their own time, rather than having a whole supplemental like thing explaining them. Like, it becomes like both necessary to have, like, for the Silmarillion, it is necessary to read the Silmarillion to truly understand everything, but you could just read Lord of the Rings and get by just fine.
Yeah. I've never read any Lord of the Rings. I've just read The Hobbit. But my dad's very, very into Lord of the Rings. But he's not a talker, so I don't really know. I don't know. He, you know, well, he's a book guy. I've told you this before on the podcast. He's a book guy, so like he likes his books, and like he's read a lot of books about the Civil War and also J.R.R. Tolkien. And we haven't had 10 conversations about either of those topics, but he knows a lot about them.
Yeah. I have I'm not a problem, but I was right before this podcast. I was on the phone with my dad. It's my dad's birthday, and
we have different dads. This is your dad.
Yeah, this is my dad, and we were talking about zombies, and he like really would not stop talking about zombies. Like he was explaining everything that he thought about it, and I was like, cool. And so I have the exact opposite problem.
Yeah, see, here's the thing. It's something I admire, and I don't want to sit here and talk about my family because, like, what a weird show that would be.
I know. What kind of show is this? What kind of show is this? Good
question. But something I admire about my dad and people in general is their ability to have interests that they keep to themselves. And I, as you've heard on the show, am working very hard to be that kind of person, but I'm not that kind of person. And it's just like, man, anyway, it's something I admire in people, and specifically my dad, his ability to just like not go on about everything that he's interested in. And I'm trying. I haven't talked about how similar Game of Thrones is to Roman history. Haven't done that, and I'm not gonna. But
yeah, that's it's difficult. I will say that, because it's like once you find out something, you just want to like explain it to everyone, and like you can see the eyes glaze over and go like,
right.
and not in like, us being us, our social cues don't kick in and go, our social cues kick in enough to go, oh no, they're not interested. But it doesn't kick it enough to go, I should probably stop talking about this.
Yeah, but my mania is like, but you'll feel better if you keep.
Yeah. Because once I get to the end of this, once I get to the end of me explaining that the FBI has a fitness app, then you will understand. Once I get to the end of this sentence, then you like, and each sentence is that sentence. Like once I am adequately explaining this to you, you will care about this as much as I do. And now we're sharing this cross and we're walking up the hill with it. It's not just me now. I'm not alone anymore.
Because here's the thing, is genuinely, I find joy in all of these things. All these crazy interests they make me happy to learn about. And genuinely, I just want to share that with other people. But other people aren't me. Not that I'm special, but I'm just saying everyone is different. Like, but do you sometimes
feel just like that you are like the hero in your own story and everyone else is just like filler characters? You know what I mean?
No,
I'm doing a joke. I'm not. I don't feel that way.
Yeah, I know, of course.
I want it to be the official stance of the podcast that I do not feel that I'm the hero of my own story. If anything, I'm working on a very weird B plot that people can follow around if they want. But I think that we check in on what I'm doing every once in a while.
Sure. You're I wouldn't say the Gunther, like a cooler Gunther. You know what I mean? From Friends, like where it's like you're there. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Is that rude? I don't mean because you work in a coffee shop.
Well, here's the thing
I don't think you're like Gunther.
Here's the thing about that. I haven't seen Friends, so I don't get that. But
perfect. Don't worry about it.
Exactly.
I don't think you have the same personality as Gunther. I'm just saying you're a character that's also there, and there's this other main thing that's going on, but you're also there. I feel the same way. What I'm trying to say,
I like to imagine that I have kind of the kind of a character that I want to be in a show is like Kevin Malone from The Office. Like, okay. I don't want to be like Kevin, but you see Kevin in The Office and you don't really hear from him that much. He just he pops in and says like something. And then when you see him out on the town, or when you see him like in a context at The Office, he's dressed way different. He's wearing sunglasses and like a cool hat, and cool. I think for him it would be cool. Like, it's like
he feels cool.
Exactly. He's definitively taking a stylistic leap that the rest of the characters do not take. The rest of them show up in the same outfits they wear at The Office, but Kevin is dressed distinctly different. And he's in a band, and that band at one point had a feud, so much so that they broke up, and then he formed a second band. Like, what?
He's got a whole rich life.
And then he had, the only things we knew about his home life was that he was engaged to Stacy, and for some reason that didn't go over. And then he has no fleshing out of what he does outside of work, and I feel like everyone just assumes that he's the same, but he cannot be the same when he's not at work. He was the frontman for one band and then became the frontman of a second band, both based entirely on police covers. That's the kind of character I want to be. Just no one's really checking in on him, but when you see him doing his own thing, it's who is this? What is happening over here?
That's fair. That's oh man, I'm striving to be Kevin Malone.
Yeah. I mean, striving to be Kevin. I want the attention of a Kevin Malone. I don't want to be Kevin Malone. I want that kind of just pops in, but then is living a whole other secret life. Kind of like Abed from Community.
Sure. My concern is that I'm gonna listen back to this in the edit and be like, Sam, you were so close to a breakthrough, but then you forgot what you were saying.
Mm-hmm.
And that thought is gone and I've forgotten it, so it doesn't matter. I finished Adventure Time. Would you like to talk about that?
Sure.
Or you finished Adventure Zone.
I finished Adventure Zone.
I'd rather talk about
you
that.
finished Adventure Time, and we both finished. Or you finished Steven Universe, and I started it. So yeah,
Well, I didn't finish Steven Universe. I only watched the 4 seasons that are on Hulu, but I found out that you can buy season 5 on Amazon Prime for like $15. So probably gonna do that tomorrow.
Nice.
What do you think about Adventure Zone? If you'll remember from episode 1, that was one of the inspirations for doing this show.
Yes.
Because it's a spin-off, like our shortlist. It's a spin-off from My Brother and Me, and was the architecture of this show, where we said, hey, we'll just do a show where we show up every week and we talk to each other, and then as things develop, we'll do other stuff.
Like a show will develop around it.
Yeah, well, eventually a show will develop, but also other ideas and whatever we want to do. And that was from listening to Adventure Zone, which you just finished. So what'd you think?
I thought it was great. I thought it was a really, like, the more I think about it, the more I'm just kind of like blown away just from the medium of storytelling in like Dungeons and Dragons, like, and how I think that, not necessarily it's an untapped market, because I feel like there's like a gazillion, Dungeons and Dragons podcasts, but,
but because of Adventure Zone.
Exactly.
I mean, there were probably others before that, but yeah. Yeah,
one that is done like so well, and I think it's a good mix of like the characters within it, like both kind of like respecting their characters. If you haven't listened to it, it's super great. I'm not gonna like do any like spoiler stuff because it is so long. It is 69 episodes. Each of them is about an hour and a half long. And I burned through it pretty quickly because, I have nothing else going on. And I like to cook food, and I'm learning how to do that while I listen to Adventure Zone. But it's Griffin McElroy, the brother who is the dungeon master, just does an amazing job weaving through a story with like arcs within it. And I think it just did like a really good job of just being like having like both episodic goals and then like long time goals, and just putting this like really they talked about it in one of their Adventure Zones, the Adventure Zone, right, where the show kind of ends up like in I think it's interesting to say that the show ends up being a way, because if you just write a story, then the show, or like the story, just goes how you wrote it. But when you have people actually participating in the story, then you don't know how the story is going to turn up. You just kind of like it's like I'm writing this story and I'm going to present it, and then it is the active, like it is like one of the most active ways to like give art to give art to the community. Like, so say for example, it's like once you give your art to something, it kind of like your interpretation doesn't matter as much anymore once it is in the public eye, because then it's their interpretation. And if you have your own interpretation on top of it, well, it's like, okay, that's cool. Thank you for giving us into your inspiration. But this painting means this to me. And
or if you wrote a book and it was like, oh yeah, I think this is really romantic, and it was like, oh no, they're in a very toxic relationship. Like, you thinking it's romantic is not going to make me think, I'm not going to be convinced like, no, actually that's very romantic. Like, well, no, we have different interpretations. The fact that you're the author doesn't make it, what you're describing as being against authorial intent, or fighting against, saying like, well, yeah, you're the author, but your opinion is not superseding to mine, although it is somewhat important to the interpretation of the text.
But like, with the Dungeons and Dragons sort of model, it's almost like he gave his painting over to 3 other people, and it was like, this means this, and goes, no, it doesn't. And then they actively change the painting itself. And then they're like, it means this now. And it's like, okay, well, this was a part of a series, and now the colors don't match up. And they go, this means this now. And so it's just like a very weird it's a very weird medium to be telling stories. And as I was saying a moment ago, that it turned out that a story made by a family became more about found families than it became about their actual families.
Yeah.
And that wasn't something that Griffin had intended in the beginning. It was something that the characters within the stories of them, within the story itself, found out from the things that he was presenting to them. And yeah, it's just wild. Like, it's just like such a wild way to tell a story. And I think it turned out really, really well. Like, it was one of those things that, like, I don't think, because when you listen to the early episodes, I don't think they knew that it was going to be as brilliant as it was. Like, there's no way that, because they were just like goofing around, and I don't think they exactly understood that they were like breaking new ground on like a way to tell stories. And I think it's like the reason I said Untapped in the beginning was because like it's still kind of like a Dungeons and Dragons like role playing sort of way, but like characters interacting within the story itself is like such a wild concept that they like I don't think because Griffin put in a lot of work, and so did the rest of the family. They put in like tons of work into it, but it's like they accidentally made something brilliant. They were like, it was too many cooks in the kitchen making something delicious. And I don't think that was like their intention, especially like when you have some of them just like adding meaningless peppers and like spices, and then the others like trying to like conduct like a actual recipe. But yeah, it was kind of groundbreaking in the way that like the stories interact with the character itself. And my father played Dungeons and Dragons when he was growing up, but there was no like overarching story. There was like campaigns they went on, and like every once in a while it was the same characters, and like over the course of time you understood your character more. And then it was just like, okay, we do this campaign, we do this campaign, we do this campaign. And like maybe at the end there's like kind of a big boss, but like nothing that draws the whole thing together in like a conductive story. So yeah.
Well, and as you listen to more episodes, because of course they go on, what you're describing is what they call the balance arc, which is like this set of characters and this main story is the first 69 episodes called Balance. And then they go on, they've done several, now they're on maybe their fourth or fifth one.
Something like that, yeah.
Called Graduation, which I'm caught up on the show because I've been listening to it. But yeah, what's great about Balance is that they kind of like you said, they like fell into it. They just sort of were doing jokes and japes, and then they like made a good show. And something that's interesting is like as the show goes on, you see different levels of trying to take it seriously. Because you know when you get to like, you'll hear on the other shows like Travis does a couple of campaigns, and they say in Balance, like Travis talks about he wrote four pages of backstory for Magnus, his character, and Graduation, he's DMing, and like they you can tell the difference. You can tell the difference between Griffin and Griffin and Travis, because he builds out this whole world and like all these little characters and all these little things, and But I do think it's interesting how organically Balance came about, where it was just like they were expecting nothing from it. They were just doing jokes, and then it turned into this really meaty story that you can see they like get more interested in and get more into, and they're like, oh, we're actually making a thing as we're going. And
yeah,
how that developed.
Definitely without the intention of like making a story. Like you do the way they first started out is like, as you said, they're joking around, and then like I think somewhere towards you can tell with the first ones they're just doing campaigns. They're just goofing around with campaigns.
Right.
And I think it's towards like, you know, some of the middle campaigns that I think each of them in their own way are kind of like, oh no, like we're holding on to something.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that like you can hear this with the other, because they go and they do a couple of other campaigns as it goes on, and you can hear them talk about their interest in storytelling. Like they're like, we don't, because they go off of Dungeons and Dragons for a while. Like they do Balances D&D, and then they come back to it for Graduation. But for a lot of the middle parts, like they're not, and Justin especially is not interested in the mechanics of the game. He's just like, yeah, whatever, we got to do a fight, blah 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 blah. But like this collaborative storytelling, and you see it in the smaller campaigns, Amnesty especially, where it really is just about telling a story. It really is just about like, how do we as it's improv kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten some pushback when I call things improv because it like a technical definition of maybe what improv is. I don't know.
Do you run around with like improv people? Like, do you hang out and like?
Hey, I run around with a lot of people.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So I don't know if it's technically like what you would call improv, but you know, they're doing a similar thing, the same genre of thing where they're like, I'm gonna say this, yes, and you know, and you yes and they just figure it out. And they're so interested in how to tell a story and using podcasting and games as a storytelling mechanism and not as playing a game, because one of the criticisms I've heard of Graduation is it's very rules based. It's very much, and you know, it's like, this is not my opinion. This is opinions I've heard. You know, it's like, oh, I don't like this one because I don't like to listen to it. And the whole time I'm wrapped up in this series because I'm like, yeah, I don't care so much about the story. I want to play. Like the way that Travis builds a world really densely. Okay, there's a story and it's good and it's fine. I mean, it's hard. It's the thing we talked about with Enchanted, where it's like, well, yeah, it isn't the thing that it's supposed to be yet.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't have 600 episodes, so yeah, it's not gonna feel like The Simpsons.
Yeah, I was talking about that is so wild. I have made that exact same comparison to Graduation. Really? Like, yeah, like I think because I was thinking about something, I was like, yeah, these people are just mad it isn't already great. And then it was because we were talking about Enchanted, and I was kind of wondering what we were talking about. But yeah, I made the same comparison to Enchanted, where like a bunch of people online are like, you know, they have their opinions and they have like this and this. And like, I think they like fully forgot that like balance didn't mean to be great. It didn't mean to be thought out. It was like, you know, they fell ass backwards into like something brilliant. And then like the idea of something being very structured at the beginning, they're just like, basically what you're saying, like, why isn't this already great? Like, why isn't this already like 100 episodes?
Right. Well, and you see that with a lot of the feedback. And I think, I mean, you know, my general opinion on people, I don't know, people being mad at art is like, I don't know. In this cultural moment, I think a lot of people are unhappy with their lives and are unhappy with the material.
Talk to them.
You know what I'm saying? With the material standings of how things are going.
Mm-hmm.
And if by material, I mean like how much money you have. Like they're upset with the amount of money they have and the amount they get paid and what their rent is and what their healthcare costs and all the blah, 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 blah. And instead of blah, 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 they find their worth in media, which is why everyone seems to hate everything that's made. Where it's like, well, this isn't, because they're trying to, in church talk, you would talk about trying to fill the God-shaped hole with all these things. In this context, you're filling the money-shaped hole with media, where it's like, hey, maybe you're unhappy because you're economically okay. I obviously have to get off this now. I'm seeing that, but maybe you're. I was
gonna say, what podcast do we have to plug for this one?
I know. This is me. This is me. This is not a. This is just me. But I've scaled back Chapo because I know how much it's affecting the show and I care about the show. So I've scaled back my Chapo just so that I don't repeat everything they say. But what I'm saying is, and this is my opinion, is that people are unhappy with their lives, I think often for material reasons. And so they focus too much on art and say like, well, if I'm not going to be happy, at least I'm going to get all my treats. And then the treats don't make them happy. They don't fill the money hole. And they're just like, well, now I hate it. You know, this didn't make me happy in every possible way. So now I'm angry with it. And which is why people love stuff. And then it's like, oh, well, now I hate it. I hate everything about it. And it's actually all of it's bad and da-da-da-da-da-da. I would suggest you put your energies elsewhere. But that's a different show for a different time. Anyway,
what is this show about?
Who knows?
Who knows?
Anyway, I think people are unfairly critical of all of the Adventure Zone stuff after Balance. I will say, I
Mhm.
don't want to get into terrible details because the feedback I have gotten on our show is people stop listening when we go into too much detail about shows they haven't
Oh
seen.
no, now we have to go into things that people don't know anything about and will
No.
not directly impact their lives.
No, I'm just saying, no. I'm just saying that we don't need to go into like, I really liked the Suffering Game. Like, well, if you haven't heard the Adventure
Mhm.
Zone, that doesn't mean anything to you.
Yeah.
But anyway, just talking broadly about media, what I'm saying is that, you know, I think people are I think Balance was very, very good but like the difference between The Simpsons and Enchanted, it's like, well, yeah, but it didn't start like that, and what we're always talking about here, right? Your
Mhm.
expectations were very different. So as it grew into what it was going to be, you know, if you're expecting Graduation to be balanced, then you're going to be upset because Graduation isn't balanced.
Mm.
You know, and Amnesty isn't balanced, and you know, the other ones aren't. You know, Balance is the only one that's balanced, and so it's going to come across differently, and it's going to grow in a different way. Now, there is plenty of criticism for the other arcs. Certainly, Graduation, there are things that I think are like missteps in the way that they're telling the story. But I think for the Adventure Zone and art in general, current contemporary pop culture art, there's a lot of blowback where it's like, well, this didn't solve all my problems. And it's like, well, a movie wasn't going to. So, or a podcast wasn't going to. So maybe you are redirecting your anger at the things that you feel like you can control, like whether or not like the Snyder cut comes out, instead of just, you know, refocusing on the material parts of your life, like getting a raise or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. But yeah, it sounds like you've gotten, you know, on the forums when it comes to McElroy stuff, and
Yeah.
I don't get on the forums, but I hear secondhand, and they sound miserable.
Hey, this is Sam from the future. I usually don't do this, but I was listening back in the edit, and I feel like I've very much misrepresented my opinion. So I want to be clear. I don't think people who don't like Graduation don't like it because of the material aspects of their life. I'm not saying, oh, if you don't like this, it's because you're poor. And I'm afraid that's how it sounded, and that's definitely not what I mean. I think there's some very big structural problems with Graduation and pacing and all the bureaucracy stuff. I mean, there are definitely some things about Graduation that I don't like, and I don't think the only reason people don't like it is like, oh, because your job is bad. Absolutely not what I'm saying. I shifted pretty quickly to talking broadly about art, thinking of, you know, Star Wars or just lots of main pop culture. Everyone being mad about, you know, Rick and Morty, ever being mad about everything. You know, you fill in whatever your like main pop culture thing is. Ever being mad about Chance the Rapper's new album, right? Like any main pop culture thing that happens, it seems that there's a majority consensus that actually everything is bad, which seems odd to me. And so I was making a leap from there. But listening back, it sounded not patronizing, the other one. Derogative. I don't know. It seemed patronizing to say, well, if you don't like Graduation, it's because you're poor. No, I don't know you. Maybe you're fine. Maybe you just don't like it because they had a whole episode about how money works. I don't know. But I will try to keep this short. Anyway, I couldn't, usually I don't re-edit my opinions in the show, but I really felt like I was misrepresenting what I think in this one, and that's on me. So, back to the show.
Yes, as you said, like if you're comparing art, like you have to really challenge your own ideas of expectations and like what it is you're trying to get from an experience. And if it's trying to get something good, then like you don't truly understand like, you know, what it means to have like art given to you, I guess.
Right. And if your expectation of good is the thing that it isn't.
Yeah,
like, it isn't this thing that already happened.
It will always be the thing that it isn't.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Which gets into like, because I think, as we got into with the Snyder Cut, and like it's always going back to the same two movies. It's Justice League and then The Last Jedi.
Of
when
course.
when we get to talk about expectations and like talking about what it means to like, you know, the thing that you want will always be better than the thing that you get, because you have decided beforehand that whatever it is you're getting will not be the thing that you want, or it will not
Right.
be like the good thing. But Sam,
Yes.
I think that what we need to talk about, and we mentioned this earlier, and we breezed past
Oh,
it.
yeah.
And it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
only, and it's the only thing that I want to talk about.
It's the only thing I want to
Because
talk about.
you sent it to me, and it has been on my mind. I've been telling it to everyone. So in the sad times, we have a lot of people in their homes, and when you have a lot of people in their homes, you have a lot of home gyms, and you have a lot of people trying to put out their products as like this is my home gym network, and we're going to offer like whatever. Chris Hemsworth very famously offered Center, his app, for 6 weeks free. My roommate and I have been doing it, and we have realized definitively why Chris Hemsworth is in such great shape and we are in not such great shape. And
Cool.
a part of this wave of people that was trying to get on the hype train to
It's like a bit that we wrote. For the
it
show.
like it couldn't be. We'll just get to it.
Yeah.
So one of the many organizations that decided to come out with their own fitness app was the FBI, the Federal
real-
Bureau of Investigations, came out with their own fitness app. And the way that they like brought it to the world was so asinine, so absolutely bonkers. Like it just popped into the like the Twitter feed, and it's the FBI, you know, famous for being the FBI.
The FBI, it's the real ass FBI.
The real, not like, and this isn't like a joke. This isn't like some
No.
verified person changed their name to FBI. And so the FBI came onto Twitter a few Mondays ago and said, #Motivation Monday. Are you looking for better tips for indoor workouts? Download the FBI's physical fitness app to learn the proper form of exercises, and you can do at home like push-ups and sit-ups, whatever. They use #Motivation Monday as if they're trying to like be an
Weird.
influencer and trying to like get into like, as if the FBI has like a side Instagram account of just like beach pictures and like, this is
Right.
my trip to Cabo, like if you want to go back or whatever. And
Right. This is my trip to Ecuador, overthrowing the government. That's the CIA. I understand they're different, but you know what I mean. Like,
yeah,
you're already an influencer. You're the fucking FBI.
So
You're the Federal Bureau of Investigation.
So-
What are you doing?
So the FBI like, what is happening? Like what? Like
It's
whom in
wild.
the FBI was looking at all the fitness apps and was like, they're not doing push-ups properly. You know what? We're gonna do the world a solid. And so the FBI comes out with this app, and everyone is like immediately suspicious because, you know, it's the FBI, famous for doing FBI shit. And so on the app, you can look into all the things that it will allow. And some of the highlights are this app has access to your approximate location at all times, or your precise
Crazy.
locations if you allow, photos,
Crazy.
media files, storage. It can read all the contents of your USB storage if you're on a laptop. It has all of your Wi-Fi connection information, and it can receive data from the internet, full network access, control vibration, and like prevent device from sleeping. Like all these things that I imagine, that the more I'm thinking about this, the more I think like a bunch of apps are doing this, and we just sound like such like dorks because every single app is doing this. Like I
Sure.
bet there's other apps that can control vibration. How else would they like allow like notifications and things like that? But it just
Right.
like seems so weirdly like, if it's not thinly veiled, like what is it? Like if it's like, it is either it is one of two things. One, it is either the FBI trying to get access to our phones, which it definitively already does, or
Sure.
like in like this like trying to be like a corporate stand-in and be like, hey everybody, we're like friendly now, and like has a like very diabolical purpose behind it. Or two, which I think is the weirder one, is it's the FBI genuinely trying to help out and like be
Okay,
cool.
That's what I think. Because here's the thing. We talked about this on Solve It when we talked about the Illuminati, when it was like, I don't understand any Illuminati conspiracies, because it's like, if they have all this power, why do they need to hide their symbols in like Jay-Z's rap videos?
Yeah.
Like, why would they need that? What do they get? And the same thing here, where it's like, you're the FBI. You don't need to trick me into getting a fitness app.
Yeah.
Like, you're the FBI. Like, you can just like call the NSA and get all my information. So I don't think there's an actual like the thing it reminded me of, and I wanted to play this game, but we were too far gone because I already sent it to you. But my idea for the show was that we were going to play this game where I read you two headlines. And never mind, blah, 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 blah. It reminded me immediately, because you know how people say, like, what is the Onion, the Onion, the parody newspaper. What is the Onion doing anymore, because life is parody.
Yeah.
And it reminded me of this article that I saw in 2011, and it was CIA's Facebook program dramatically cut agency costs. And it's this video about where they're interviewing the CIA, and they're just like, yeah, so we set up this new website, Facebook. It's really great. People just, instead of having to track people down, they just automatically put their name, their location, their entire network of friends, what they enjoy, where they spend their time. And like, that's the gag. It's like, oh, the Facebook is set up by the CIA, and that's how they're tracking all of your information, right? But then in our real ass life in 2020, the FBI is like, yeah, we'll just make a fitness app and you could just track all your movements on it. No worries. Yeah, just download this app and we'll track everything you do.
Yeah, it really is like, it feels like in this old Ghostbusters episode, when there was a show called The Real Ghostbusters, like there was this guy that would grant you a wish if like something bad happened, and it was like everything was like so deeply like stupid ironic. Like there was this guy who and it was all based on the things that you worded it. It's like some guy wanted to be closer to his family. So he said, I want to be closer to my roots, and then he turned into a tree. Or one guy was like,
it's a monkey's paw. You're talking about
kind of like the same thing, except it was an episode of The Real Ghostbusters. Do not get me distracted. I want to talk about The Real Ghostbusters in a future episode. Anyway, so it just feels like, yeah, like someone was like, I want a way to be connected to everybody or whatever. And then it's like, oh, here's Facebook, but it's run by like all of these like media corporations. And it just feels like everything is a joke. Like everything has like a dark punchline, and it's like just ridiculous. But the most like, I don't know, like the FBI having a fitness app just seems like one of the top tiers of either just like nefarious, which it doesn't need to be nefarious, as you said, because it has all the information all the time, or just like absolutely clueless. Like
it's so
like
wild.
I think it's like the FBI just must be filled with people, and it has to be because they work there. Like it has to be filled with people that are just like, we're cool, like we're the cool dudes, and like we do cool shit, and everybody wants to be like us. And then it's just like, you know what? Guess what, plebs? Like we got you. We're gonna help you out by teaching you how to do a push-up.
We're past the era of like culture is dying, and because of that, it's no longer like, yeah, I'm cool and I run all these investigations and I send all these people to jail and I'm a cool cop. Now it's like, man, I want to be cool. What's cool? Being on the internet. So I guess so like they're working at the FBI and they're just like, yeah, it's kind of one of those things where you ever work like a medium job.
Yeah.
Where it's like a medium job. It's like whatever job. And especially corporate jobs you get where they're like, look, we are actually changing the world. And it's like, man, we're not. And that's okay. Like we can just have a medium job. But people like, you see so many videos on the internet that are like, at our company, we're inspiring the future. And it's like, oh, I want to be at a company that inspires
and it's the future. It's like a technical college.
But instead of like changing your actual like the logistics of your life, it's like,
it would be easy. Now, actually inspiring the future would be difficult. So what I'm going to do is convince myself that what I'm doing is inspiring the future. And I've done this. I've worked at jobs that were nothing. And I was just like, well, actually, because that sucks.
Sam is talking about this one summer he worked for a peach truck, and then a fall where he worked on a pumpkin patch, and then a Christmas where he sold Christmas trees. That's the job he's talking about. He's talking about
all of those.
He's talking about the way that we sell peaches needs to be modernized. Hi, I'm Sam Cherry, and we're going to change the way that you think about peaches.
All of those jobs ruled and were great. No, I mean like office jobs. Like I worked for, and they're cool people or whatever, but I worked for this company and they did continuing education. And instead of doing big like work seminars, like people like white collar jobs, they have to get like certifications or whatever. They have to do like CE, continuing education seminars, like every couple of years. I don't know. A lot of professional certificates need this kind of stuff. And so I was doing online content for this. I was working for a company that made this kind of stuff, and I was making the videos. And I remember trying to like squish my brain into a shape that was like, well, you are keeping, some parent from having to get on a plane and be away for a whole weekend and do some trips. So you're actually keeping And now whatever, you do what you gotta, you think what you gotta think. But now I'm older and it's just like, man, I could have just been cool about it. I could have just been like, yeah, I work at this job and it's fine. And we do this thing and that's a thing and it's sold for money and we make money. You know what I mean? Like it didn't have to be, but I was just out of college and it was like, actually what I do is really important in saving.
What I do is integrate and excite and energize.
Yeah. Just imagine if everything you did you thought was Kony 2020. Sorry.
Dude,
Freudian slip. We're gonna get him this year.
Kony 2020. Why, Kony 2020 : why not? Like,
why not? Hey, what else are we doing?
Dude, honestly, just like this year has been a crock pot of shit. Just throw him in there. Like throw in.
Sure, why
throw
not?
Kony in. Like. We like, statistically, we can't lose everything. So this is the year we're going to get him. We're going to get Kony this time.
That's where you're wrong. We could lose everything. But anyway, Kony 2012, whatever. You just think that everything has to be this like big monumental. And part of that's growing up, going to youth groups. And like every youth group makes every camp sound like this is the one where we changed. And it's like, okay, whatever. It's marketing mostly. Not youth groups, but youth group camps a lot of the time. I don't know if I mean that, but you know what I'm talking about. You know those videos where it's like, they're all like one word verbs. Dig, lift. When I was in middle school, we had two different things. Like over 6 months, they changed the Wednesday night group from dig to lift, and it was like, and then we had ignite, whatever, blah, 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 blah. That's whatever. But what was I talking about? There was something earlier about how everyone feels like
something about society.
So I assume, no, I got it. No, it's the FBI. So I assume that it's someone at the FBI who's just like, we actually are cool. When it's like, no, you're not, and that's okay. You're the cops, and that's okay.
You're like the super cops. Yeah. It's like every once in a while you'll see like this happens where like the police will do like a video to like seem like cool to the youth or something. They're just like, what's up? We're with it. And it's like, this is us playing basketball like in a park. Like you didn't think the cops could do this. And it's like, no, you guys are people, but like just be like, just know who you are. Like you're the cops. Like
I'm a cop, but under my uniform is an Iron Man t-shirt. It's like, just be a cop. You can just be a cop, dude. It's fine.
I know about these movies. Like, shut up.
So someone at the FBI is watching way too many videos about how everything is Kony 2012, and then they're just like, we're not the super cops. Actually, we're pretty cool. And that's like that whole like Silicon Valley thing. I mean, all of this is a very like Silicon Valley thing. And it's just like, actually, we're hip and with it, and we're cool, and we're like innovators. And it's like, no, you're the cops. It's fine. And so then they come out with this. That was my actual theory about how this fitness app came about. Is someone said they need to be a disruptor, and they just like kept saying it until the app manifested
into
the
they said it like Beetlejuice. They said it too many times in a row, and it just like it popped into existence.
Disrupt. They watched too many TED Talks, and it just came out of their computer.
Yeah, it came out of
and
the
said, "Here's
computer
your
like
app now."
it was like a techie, but it was like came out of the computer like Pennywise the Dancing Clown, but he was just like, how are we going to energize your base?
Right, we're disrupting. It's like, you're the cops. Your
Just,
job
like,
is literally
pulling out of a
is
computer.
the opposite of that.
No. He's wearing like wearing one of
so-
those like vests, you know what I mean? One of those like corporate guy vests.
Yeah, exactly. All right.
All right.
See you bye forever.
See you bye forever.